Hello, my name is Chris Locke and I'm the Executive Vice President of Commercial for Infineum. Welcome to this video celebrating 25 years of Infineum. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Mr Petkar, President and Chief Technology Officer for Tata Motors. And we're going to be having a conversation about sustainable mobility. Global warming is increasingly one of the most fundamental challenges facing humanity, with communities and ecosystems all around the world being affected, and the need to restrain temperature rises to 1.5 degrees by 2100, as articulated in the United Nations resolutions, has never been greater. Here in India, the target is 2070 for net zero, with the government having ambitious plans to help maintain growth in the economy while meeting those commitments through making India a key source of green energy. Mr Petkar, perhaps I could begin by asking you for your opinions on that topic.
Yeah, so Government of India has taken the target of compliance to the net zero by 2070. And we do believe it's an audacious target. It's quite aspirational. And but if you were to ask me where we are onto that in terms of the compliance, I think it will be too early to make any confirmed statement, because 2070 is solid 46 years away from where we are today. So, but I think if we look at the action plan which is unfolding in front of us, I think it all goes to give us a sort of a confidence that even though the goal might be quite tough, but I think it could be reached with certain actions which have been planned. And let me just talk about few of them. Actually, even though the 2070 is an important milestone, but before that, in 2030, we have an intermediate milestone. By 2030, there are supposed to be certain achievements as a country in terms of certain aspects. And if I go by all the vibes which are there in the media and what is being spoken by the various policymakers, it looks to us that this target of 2030 actually would be even reached, maybe even before 2030. Mm-hmm. So there are many, I would say, the initiatives which have been taken by the Government of India, and also the private sector is not lagging behind. The private sector also is equally committed. So while 2070 may look to be a sort of a distant goal, but the actions speak. And therefore, there is every sense of a confidence that even though it may be tough, but I think we won't be there, right? And I think the first step is 2030, and which looks to be within the reach.
Well, thank you for such a comprehensive answer. Maybe I could pick up on one of the topics you mentioned there, which I found very interesting, which is different powertrains. Could you maybe make some comments from your perspective about how you see the diversity of powertrains looking into the future?
Yeah, this is very interesting questions and quite oftenly asked, I may say. As an OEM, like say Tata Motors in our case, and any other OEM also would depend on the infrastructure and the ecosystem. Now the ecosystem already exists for the conventional liquid fuels, whether it's a gasoline or the diesel. To an extent, the ecosystem is actually emerging when it comes to the fuel blends. Now the next, the frontier here is about the alternate fuel, which are nothing but the gas mobility. And where we talk about both the CNG as well as the LNG. Now, driven by the acute concern on the pollution side, and with the activism coming from the various courts, India adopted the gas-based mobility, although in a very small scale, in the early 2000s in the city of Delhi. And there was a directive that the entire city bus fleet should actually migrate towards the CNG. And then thereafter, there has been a progressive steps taken by the Government of India in terms of how to augment the dispensing stations for the CNG. And then we have actually come up to a very good state now. The penetration of the CNG in the entire vehicle basket is anywhere between 15 to 20% now, which is quite significant. And then in what way the CNG and LNG helps? Actually, there is a significant reduction of the pollution, both in terms of the regulated pollution as well as far as the CO2 footprint is concerned. So actually it's a win-win. and there is a enough potential, I would say, to be harnessed as far as the gas-based mobility is concerned. And lots of investments are being made by both the government as well as by the auto companies. Now, but simply relying on, let's say, the continuous improvement of the IC engines, or let's say going for the biofuels, or going for the gas-based mobility is not going to be enough to meet the stated objective of achieving a net zero target. Now, there are different companies who have taken a different target, which could be like a self-imposed target. Like in the case of a Tata Motors, we say that by 2040, in the passenger vehicle, we said we will achieve the net zero target, and for the commercial vehicle, it would be by 2045. That being the case, if you really work backwards, the time remaining is too short, right? So, but then we are also putting all out efforts in terms of electrification, zero emission technologies, and very proud to say that, Tata Motors, both on the PV side as well as the CV side, we have a range of the products which are with the zero emission technology, namely battery electric vehicle. And also then we also have been the pioneer as far as the fuel cell technology is concerned. We have already supplied the buses in the Indian market, which are with the hydrogen fuel cell. So I'm saying that there is no one solution. You can't rely on only one technology. And this is actually an ecosystem play. And the ecosystem largely to an extent also is in the hands of the policymakers, with all the oil companies, I would say, all the energy companies, and also the auto OEMs should definitely, make sure that they are ready actually ahead of, when the infrastructure is getting ready. Otherwise, it's a long gestation period in terms of the product development and the technology evolution.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just come back and ask you a question about one technology which historically was seen as rather niche, but is increasingly being discussed in long haul, and you mentioned it in the context of heavy duty, which is fuel cell. Mm-hmm. Could you say maybe a little more about your perspectives on where you see fuel cell in the future as an automotive power source?
When it comes to zero emission technologies, you have the battery electric vehicle, then you have the hydrogen, and the hydrogen, why? Because actually it is a carbon-free fuel. There are two ways in which one can use the hydrogen. The one way is, to use it through the fuel cell technology. You generate the electricity, the fuel cell stack generates actually the electricity, and use that electricity to store in the battery and to propel the wheels. The other mode of, using the hydrogen is to burn it in the internal combustion engine. Coming to the specific question about the hydrogen fuel cell, it's a technology which is rapidly evolving. There is a significant research and development which is happening. There is a very good policy support which is coming from the government. The traditional, let's say, the challenges around the fuel cell in terms of the contamination, in terms of system integration, those challenges are getting overcome. Investments are happening in two areas. One, which is the basic core fuel cell stack development, and second one is in the hydrogen cylinders. And these two, which are actually the high cost areas, there is the R&D which is happening, the investments which are happening, and there is a rapid fall in the prices, which we are actually envisaging. Having said this, it's not that it is going to happen tomorrow, right? And therefore, there is a focus. In my view, as a Tata Motor, we have delivered the 15 fuel cell buses. So it's a commercial tender which we won 2 years back, and we offered the 15 buses for the urban mobility. And therefore the focus now, because realizing the benefit of a hydrogen, not just for the automotive sector, but it cuts across multiple sectors. There is let's say, the interest, and there is a focus now. It would be still some, let's say, the years away for the mass adoption, but surely it will happen. The hydrogen fuel cell is seen as a very, very viable technology for a long distance haulage, heavy duty trucking application for a number of benefits. For the benefit related to, the You don't have to carry the battery. You don't carry the heavy mass of the batteries. Then you don't have a problem of charging, the time to duration for the charging. And overall, it's a neat and the clean solution. So therefore, it would happen. But I think we are just going through the process of a transition through multiple fuels, multiple options, and then we will eventually go with the zero emission technology.
Perhaps we could finish with a short discussion about current commercial engines. I think Tata really took a bold and market-leading step in introduction of the 5W30 commercial lubricants, which I know you're very closely involved in, I'm sure you're very proud of it. And of course that helps to drive towards greater levels of durability, greater levels of fuel efficiency, which enable a more sustainable current commercial trucking. Could you maybe say a word or two about what's the next on the agenda for you?
So this is a very interesting point actually. This is a story about the 5W30. It was absolutely a bold call that we took, and frankly speaking, when it was taken a few years back, we were not quite sure. And it so happened that it coincided with the migration from the BS4, which is akin to Euro 4, to BS6, which is akin to Euro 6 norm in the country. So we were actually looking at let's say, modernize the powertrains, look at the inside the engine, the technology, and then how do we make that change. And therefore we can make a change which is just suitable to accept a thinner oil like say 5W30. So there was a sort of a confidence that we can actually make it happen, and if not we, then who else, right? That was also thinking behind, and we have taken many such bold calls. But I think finally it's a history now that it was a fantastic development. I must also appreciate the efforts put in by the Infineum team here. It was a completely co-engineered, the project between Tata Motors and the Infineum. And I think it was a solid, let's say, the formulation, which was tested on multiple engines, multiple vehicles. And eventually, it has been able to deliver in terms of the promise that we had started with, to achieve certain level of the fuel efficiency improvement and also the required durability.
I think perhaps at this point in time we can draw the discussion to a close. I would like to thank you, Mr. Petkar, for such an open, transparent and informative discussion. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.